A couple quick notes about today's video. First of all, this video was made 2 years ago. We initially didn't post it though because we thought it might come off in the wrong way, just talking about numbers and everything. So we kind of put it on the back burner. But ultimately I felt this is still very valuable information. Information I wish I had when I was in this stage trying to figure out early on, is flying helicopters privately something that's even feasible for me? And a lot of the attitudes that I found online at the time from private owners was, oh, if you have to ask, you can't afford it. But how do I know if I can afford it if I don't know the prices? So we ultimately decided to post the video, and then the pandemic hit, and with massive job losses, et cetera, we thought it just didn't feel right posting a video about luxury items like helicopters at that time. So we put it on the back burner again. So finally, for the third time, we're dusting it off and thinking about posting it. So last note I'm gonna say though is that any negative comments, must be nice, blah, 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 you're gonna get deleted and blocked. Let's keep it positive in the comments.
Today is the day that you've all been waiting for. We will answer the most common question that we get on this channel. It's how much does a private personal helicopter cost? We're gonna dive into it real deep. If you just want a quick and dirty and wanna know how much helicopters cost, here's a list of the most common helicopters. Anything with an R in front of it is a Robinson made helicopter. They are the most popular brand of helicopter manufacturers in the private sector in the world. A lot of people who are private owners will have either an R22 or an R44 or an R66. Personally, we have an R44 Raven II. The Raven II is a fuel injected version of the Raven I, so it has slightly more horsepower. All that aside, these are the prices. If this is all that you wanted, the short answer, then we'll see you on the next video. There is a whole lot more that we're gonna unpack as far as the economics of a helicopter. These prices I just pulled off of the Robinson website. If you go onto each model, you can find a PDF that says estimated operating costs, and this is sort of the sticker price that they recommend. It's not the base model price. You can get them for a little bit cheaper, I think, but once you add on all the stuff that you need and the bells and whistles, the avionics that you want, et cetera, you're gonna end up spending this or more. So this is a good starting point. And the rest of the helicopters that aren't Robinson, I basically just Googled them. The actual cost of ownership is vastly different because once you buy the helicopter, then you need to actually run it. There's a whole used market, so we're gonna talk a little bit about that at the hangar, so let's move over there. Get out of the wind and we'll talk about it here in the back seat. I don't think I've ever sat in the back of the helicopter before. This is so weird being back here. It's kind of cramped back here, isn't it?
It's so cramped for a long period of time. It sucks.
I can see your legs feel a little bit claustrophobic after a while. Certainly after a few hours. But you do get some nice vistas.
You have nobody sitting in front of you.
That's true, actually, yeah. So we're gonna go down the rabbit hole of helicopter economics 101.
Oh God, I'm rolling my eyes back here.
She's rolling her eyes back there because she doesn't find this stuff interesting. This is the stuff that I obsessed over for years when I was thinking about buying a helicopter. And we're gonna focus on Robinson helicopters because they're, again, as we said before, the most common helicopter produced worldwide. I think I read a stat somewhere that said that Robinson produces more helicopters than every other helicopter manufacturer in the world combined. And they have fairly easy maintenance schedules. So what a lot of people don't realize is they aren't good forever. You can't just buy them and then just fly them forever. Robinson in particular, they are limited to 2,200 flight hours or 12 years on the calendar from manufacture. So if this rolled off and brand new off the assembly line, I flew it for 2,200 hours in say 6 years, then it has to be rebuilt or overhauled. If I rolled it off the assembly line and I kept it for 12 years, but I only flew 1,500 hours, well then there's 700 hours left on it that just go poof, gone. There's economics that you have to kind of strategize and figure out how you're gonna use the machine. Not a lot of people realize that. So for example, people just, send us messages saying, hey, can you fly me across the country? It'll be so fun. We're just like, you don't realize how much that's gonna cost us. That's not an inexpensive proposition. It's not just like a sports car where you buy the car, you roll it off the lot, and you can pretty much just drive it to your heart's content. Every hour you fly, you can calculate how much value they're depreciating. I've budgeted to fly 70 hours per year. For people who I don't know, it just doesn't make sense for me to take them up. I don't mind taking our friends up because we have a great time with them. And again, I've budgeted for that. While we love sharing the passion for aviation, we just couldn't take up everybody who solicits us, just because it's essentially us giving you a piece of our helicopter. If I've only got this many units of helicopter to fly, asking to take up 5 hours of it would be, a significant portion of our budget for that year, and it's essentially asking to own part of our helicopter since it's depreciating so rapidly. That's just kind of what we consider when we're deciding when to fly. It's just a very complex topic of helicopter economics, as you've probably found now. There's a whole other side to it too, because we've only talked about how much it costs to buy the helicopter and how fast the helicopter depreciates. There's also other costs, like fuel, maintenance, hangar fees, insurance, all that kind of stuff that factors in and raises the price another significant amount. You can actually calculate a per hour cost to fly the helicopter once you factor all those things in. Let's go for a quick little flight because we want to test the Osmo Pocket. We'll link to the video up here. We'll talk a bit more about how much it costs to fly per hour when we get back. All right, let's go. All right, nice flight. I think it held up all right. We'll see when we get back, and well, you'll have already seen the footage, so you'll know. Push this guy back in and talk a little bit more about how much it costs per hour to fly. Good. Okay, so we're driving home now. Had a nice little flight, just kind of looped around, did some circuits around the airport. Yeah, buying a new helicopter, that is a ton of your assets that are gonna be tied up. If you buy a brand new helicopter, you're essentially paying for 12 years of use, and you're flying around with 12 years of stored value in the helicopter. That's a crazy amount to insure as well. So the cheapest way to acquire an R44 is to buy it used, and buy one that has a good combination of number of hours flown and years on the calendar that is compatible with how much you're gonna be flying.
Compatible?
Compatible.
Isn't it compatible?
I said compatible.
Compatible with...
No, you said compatible, like battle.
Okay, I meant to say compatible then. Compatible! Listen here, the backseat vlogger here, green light. You have to kind of be strategic with how many hours it has left on it and how much calendar time it has left on it when you're a private flyer like myself. So for me, I know I'm probably only gonna be flying 50 to 80 hours per year, so it doesn't make sense to buy an aircraft that has 2,000 hours on it that I'm just gonna not use before it times out calendar-wise. So the key is finding a good combination of hours and calendar time. So if you say found an aircraft that had 400 hours left on it and you're only planning on flying 60 hours per year, you're gonna take almost 7 years to fly that off. So you're gonna have to make sure that aircraft has 7 calendar years left on it before the 12-year expiration date. Conversely, if you're flying 80 hours a year and that same aircraft has 400 hours left on it, you only need 4 or 5 years left on the calendar. So it's finding ideal combinations of hours and calendar years left on it that will make buying used a little bit tricky. We lucked into finding this aircraft. I've been scouring listings for 2 years since I started getting obsessed with flying, and this was the best combination of hours and years to efficiently use all the hours. I budgeted for 70 hours a year, and that's going to last me for the full 4 or 5 calendar years that was on it. So we jumped on it. And if you do that, you can get into an R44 for less than $200,000, which is quite a bit less expensive than the $500,000 price tag that's on it. Let's get some food here now, and then we'll meet you back at the studio back home, and we'll talk about we'll actually break down the costs of how much it exactly costs per hour to fly a helicopter.
I'm about to acquire some sushi for my pie hole.
Sushi for her pie hole. There we
go.
go.
Get in me! House salad! House salad! House salad! Can't wait to eat it.
Okay, we're back from our flight. That was a bit of fun. I don't think that the Osmo Pocket worked very well underneath the heli because of all the vibrations. It kind of gave a lot of jello. We'll link to that video up there. Yeah, it was pretty bad.
100% shit.
Yeah. We were gonna talk a little bit more about the hourly operating costs of a helicopter. So first of all, I made a spreadsheet breaking down all these costs. Okay, Becki is laughing at me in the background.
Spreadsheet.
Yeah, I made a spreadsheet. She doesn't know how to use Excel. So Robinson Helicopters publishes an estimated operating cost PDF every year. So the one from January of 2019 estimated that an R44 Raven II should cost you about $253 per hour to run, which right now I can tell you is a gross underestimation of real life numbers. Because first of all,
What they based their estimates on is somebody operating it 500 hours per year. That may be applicable to a commercial operation that's using this for a business, but we're doing this video on personal and private helicopter ownership. I can tell you right now that I know no private owners that are flying their aircraft 500 hours per year. That's a lot of flying. Just for reference, I budgeted about 70 to 80 hours per year, but I do know a lot of private pilots who fly even less than that. Some fly more than that in the hundreds, but most private people who aren't doing it for business or commercially, they're only flying, 50 to 100 hours per year max. Like most things, economies of scale, the more you buy of something or the more you do something, the cheaper it gets. So in this case, a lot of your fixed costs, like your insurance, which is just gonna be a lump sum per year, your hangar rental is just gonna be a flat rate regardless of how much you fly. All those extra costs get divided over more flight hours per year, so the more you fly, the cheaper it gets per hour. So first of all, I used the same purchase price of a brand new R44 Raven II that they used, so it's $496,300. That'll get you a brand spanking new R44 Raven II that's good for 12 years or 2,200 flight hours. That's not the best way to do it if you're private, in my opinion, because like we talked about before, if you don't fly off all those 2,200 hours, so if you're flying less than 183.3 hours per year, then you're gonna waste money because the hours are just gonna disappear. We can calculate that if we're paying $496,300 for a brand new aircraft and the value of a timed out R44, this is a little bit controversial because it depends on who you ask, but generally speaking, when your R44 has drained all the life out of it, there's no hours left on it, the timed out body ready to be overhauled will be worth anywhere from $100,000 to $125,000. This is open to debate, but we'll say $100,000 to $125,000. Let's split the difference and call it $112,500 is what your timed out core is going to be worth when it's ready to be rebuilt and overhauled in 12 years. So that gives you a total number of $383,800 of depreciated value. Divide that by the 2,200 hours that you've flown. Now you know that each hour is worth about $174.45. Every time you fly, your aircraft depreciates by that much. Next, we go on to our direct operating costs. So I've estimated that fuel and oil, I've lumped them together. It costs about $85 an hour to run the helicopter. Most of that's fuel cost, but that price may vary depending on where you're operating out of, if your fuel prices are higher or lower than what mine are at my local field. Another direct operating cost is maintenance. This can be scheduled or unscheduled maintenance. I've kind of just made it a ballpark estimate of $36 an hour for that. So next, if we take our fixed costs, which are our insurance, our hangar, divide that by the number of hours we're flying. In this case, I've put in 80 hours per year. That gives us $173 an hour. Add everything up, and that gives us a grand total of $468.58. That's almost double what Robinson quoted because we're flying so many fewer hours. And this is more in line with what people around the internet are saying. Obviously, Robinson's quotes are gonna be a little bit conservative because they're trying to sell you a helicopter and make it seem like a great deal. It's still very expensive, and it's about double what they're saying it's gonna be. If you fly 500 hours a year, it's gonna be much cheaper. So if I plug in 500 hours per year to my spreadsheet, a total cost per hour of $323 an hour, which is still marginally more expensive than what Robinson quotes, but it does get a little bit more affordable from that standpoint. If you fly 50 hours per year, the total cost per hour is $572 an hour. So if you can find a helicopter rental place, you can actually get one for about $450, $500 an hour. So that's probably the threshold for when is it better deal to rent versus own, and we'll talk a bit more about that in a later video. So you can see the question of how much does it cost to fly per hour? Well, it depends, because it depends on how many hours you fly per year. And that's assuming that you don't have any loan interest that you're paying, which is another fixed cost that you'd have to factor into the equation. Okay, so the final point I wanna make too is that you have to learn to fly the damn things. If you haven't gone to flight school already, that's a huge cost as well. I trained in Canada, so I don't know exactly what the going rates are in the US, but in Canadian dollars, I know I was shelling out $525 per hour, and I did a 105-hour commercial program. So it was pretty expensive. If you do the private program, it's gonna be cheaper. I think they're 40 or 50 hours. The flight instructors that I've talked to said that there are a minority of people who can do a private license in 40 to 50 hours. It's more like 60 to 70 hours at least. So you're gonna be spending a lot more than probably what a lot of these companies are quoting. So if you Google how much does a helicopter license cost, I think the first link says $10,000 to $15,000. I'd be very impressed if you could get a private license for $10,000 or $15,000. That is how much a helicopter costs to buy, how much a a helicopter costs to run, and ultimately how much it costs to learn to fly. These are all things that you have to consider if this is something that you're wanting to get into. I hope it's helpful because this is all the information that I wished I had in one spot readily available to me when I was trying to see if helicopters was something I could get into or afford to get into at some point in my life. Because ultimately, you need to know if this is something you'll be able to pursue from a financial standpoint before you get into it. Okay, so I know that the prices are crazy high and you're probably having sticker shock right now and thinking, how the hell am I gonna be able to afford this? And all you wanna do is just fly helicopters. Do not worry, we're gonna make a video on all the ways that you can get to flying helicopters with, and it doesn't necessarily mean just be rich. Becki and I are super lucky to be able to pursue this passion. Becki's dancing in the periphery and she's ruining all these takes. That was a good one too. That was a good one. You me up, Becki. We'll leave it at that, and you're gonna try to edit it, and then that's gonna be the last take that you have.
We're very fortunate to be able to fly helicopters and to be able to own the Millennial Falcon and to be able to go on all these trips, so we're thankful for that.
We are.
So don't worry, have faith. In the next video, we're gonna talk about how you can actually afford to fly a helicopter, correct?
That's exactly what we're gonna do. You know what? You. You did that in one take? I'm here like, choking on my words. Wow, it's been only 2 years since that video was shot, but I feel 10 years older because the pandemic has weighed heavily on us all. So one thing I want to mention about this video is that the prices we used from Robinson were from 2019, and they will increase their prices by a few % per year. So if you're watching this video in the future, know that the prices are going to be a little bit more depending on how far into the future you are. And the last thing you know is that we haven't been flying a whole lot over 2020 just because of the pandemic, so you haven't seen a whole lot of helicopter videos on this channel. Hopefully as the vaccine rolls out, we can get everybody safe and we can start traveling again, and you guys will see more helicopter videos from us. But in the meantime, if you liked the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell so you get notified when we post new videos. We'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye. Put on F4 like a noob. Noob.
So you had the other one on like a noob.
Trying to blind me. Classic. Chicken wings in my teeth? I didn't check.
Oh, that's a noob mistake.
I walked in the frame, just sat down and didn't say anything. I was like, I should probably start talking.